Anyone who knows me will tell you that I love three things in this world: video games, cooking, and hot moms.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Unfortunately, I couldn't really find a way to fit that third one in the script, so maybe we'll leave that for another video. Cooking has always been special to me. There's something about the process of mixing and combining different ingredients with all of these different techniques that I find so relaxing and fascinating. As someone who extremely values creativity, it really is an art form that if you go deep enough down the line can turn into a straight up science. If you've ever tried to make carbonara and ended up with scrambled egg noodles, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It goes without saying that video games are also a really big part of my life, and these two seemingly unconnected worlds come together maybe more often than you think. During one of my nightly bouts of insomnia, I had the thought that it would be fun to talk about how two of the most important pillars of my life intersect. And after doing some research, it seems like this is a pretty untapped topic here. So let's talk about cooking in video games. I think we should start out by examining why cooking is put into games. I want to mention that there are a few games where cooking is the main and only point, and they're fun, we love them, but I want to specifically look at games that include it as a smaller mechanic. I will be using them as background footage though, cause what else am I supposed to put here? Cooking is put into games for a variety of reasons, from pure aesthetics to time-killing minigames, but I found that the genre of game is usually the biggest factor in how they're implemented. In survival games like Sons of the Forest, where just sustaining yourself is a core aspect of the gameplay, well, a pretty big part of staying alive is not starving to death. Sure, you could survive off berries and carrots, but you often get more bang for your buck by combining ingredients into full meals. Even in its most basic form, you probably don't want to be eating uncooked meat. I don't want to eat this! So throw it on some fire and now you've got a perfectly edible, albeit unseasoned, piece of meat to get you through the next couple of days. RPG action-adventure games tend to be more creative with their cooking uses. Did you mistime your parry and get smacked across the face with a serrated club? Here, eat the soup you made, you'll feel better. Food is also commonly used to give temporary bonus stats in these games. Eating the right sandwich in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet can drastically increase your odds of finding a shiny Pokémon, for example.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Something I find fun is trying to determine how devs decide which food gives which bonus. Like, peppers are spicy foods are often referred to as hot, so it makes sense that a dish with peppers in it would keep you warm in cold environments. But how exactly does hamburger equal shiny Magnemite? From an external standpoint, these games also benefit from the downtime of cooking. When you're hunting giant monsters or saving the world, it can be nice to take a break and whip up some lunch. The actual cooking can come in many forms, from clicking around in a menu to timing minigames to a more hands-on approach.
No!
But whatever the case, you can't cook without ingredients. There are plenty of games where you just buy them from shops around the world, but I think that's pretty boring. I'm way more keen on the games where you have to go out and get the ingredients yourself. The core of hunting and scavenging and turning your haul into something that allows you to stay alive or heal you in a pinch translates into a pretty great gameplay loop. Farming and cooking go hand in hand because of this. To me, if you can farm in a game but the option to cook with those ingredients isn't available, something feels off. Admittedly, cooking doesn't really need to be in games that focus on farming, but it does translate into a simple extra layer of gameplay. I mean, you already have half the equation with the food you're growing. An optional recipe list to fill out like in Stardew can add hours of playtime with little drawback and give players more to do with their crops than just sell and eat them. I think a big part of what makes cooking in video games so appealing to me is the imagery. I don't know what it is, but food in video games and anime almost always looks better than it ever could in real life. The first thing that comes to mind when I say that is probably something like this. But not every game needs to go that hard. I think some good hand-drawn or even pixel art can be a great visual styling for food. The sushi in Dave the Diver doesn't make me want to commit atrocities to my monitor like at Monster Hunter, but I still think it looks good. So let's talk about how Final Fantasy XIV uses everything we've talked about to make what is, in my opinion, the pinnacle of cooking in video games. Final Fantasy XIV gamifies the fuck out of cooking and I absolutely love it. Every part of the process is so involved. If you don't know how crafting works in FF14, all of the skills are kind of interlinked. So if you want to make clothes, you'll also need to dabble in leatherworking, and leatherworking requires a lot of blacksmithing and so on and so forth. Cooking does have a little bit of crossover, but for the most part relies on gathering skills, which I feel makes it really easy to approach for someone that isn't quite comfortable with crafting yet. A gateway drug of sorts. Beginning dishes focus on using ingredients that can be bought from vendors, but as you gain more skill and unlock more difficult recipes, they'll require ingredients that you either need to make yourself or find out in Eorzea. Ingredients get progressively harder to find as you level up, with a lot of them only being available during certain hours of the endgame clock. You could buy ingredients from the world market if you have a premium membership, but like I said earlier, that takes a lot of the fun out of it for me. You're given a pretty significant first time XP bonus every time you craft something new, so instead of cooking 1,000 boiled eggs to level up, you end up fishing, foraging, and hunting all over Eorzea to make a bounty of different dishes as you increase your skill. The cooking process itself is really unique in Final Fantasy XIV, sharing a lot of similarities to the game's combat system. Leveling up unlocks new skills, which gives you more varied rotations, and in the vein of RPGs, there's also some RNG involved. So you can't just memorize a rotation and get a perfect dish every time unless you're high enough level to trivialize a lower level recipe. Even your gear plays a part in successful crafting, with higher stat values making it easier to craft perfect dishes. Everything that you can craft comes in a standard and high quality version, but you really don't want to go for the standard version most of the time since they have worse stats. Crafting a high quality ingredient that goes into another dish will even automatically fill up some of your quality meter. You know.
Better ingredients, better pizza, better bitches, better money, my clothes better, my shoes better.
So there's a real incentive to get your rotations down and make the best stuff you can. Now you're probably asking, why go through all of this trouble just to make a little food? Well, other than the fact that I think the cooking is straight up fun, just being well fed in Final Fantasy XIV gives you 3% bonus XP around the board. If you've never played Final Fantasy XIV, you're probably thinking, 3%? That's it? But when you're power leveling multiple classes from 1 to 90, that 3% adds up, saving you potentially hundreds of hours of grinding. Food can also give you bonus stats, which, when you get to higher level dungeons and raids, can straight up make or break a run. And because of the high demand for certain dishes, you can make a killing in the world market if you're someone with a high enough cooking level to make them. Okay, so I lied in the title. Nothing is perfect. The only thing that I think Final Fantasy XIV is kind of lacking is the imagery that we talked about earlier. The little icons for each dish are cute, but they aren't extra high fidelity like in Monster Hunter or Final Fantasy XV, and it can sometimes be a little hard to see what the dish actually looks like. It would be nice if you could expand each item for a bigger, higher quality picture, but there are like hundreds of items to craft, so I get why that's not a thing. It can also be a lot of work to find the more uncommon ingredients. There are maps in the game to help you find 85% of them, but you basically need a third-party site to locate the other 15%. I personally don't mind it, but it is a lot of research that some people might not care for. It's also worth mentioning that cooking will absolutely obliterate your inventory. I can't even imagine trying to level this up on a free trial without retainers. I have one that's basically entirely dedicated to holding ingredients, and I still struggle to keep open inventory slots. Still, I really think this is the best form of cooking I've ever seen in a video game. They took something that could have easily just been mindless menu crafting and basically turned it into its own microgame within Final Fantasy XIV. If you're looking for a game with really fun cooking, I can't advocate for this enough. Just be prepared to develop a slight addiction and maybe lose hundreds of hours of your life. Hey, thank you for making it to the end of the video. Was this all just an elaborate excuse for me to get back into Final Fantasy XIV? Maybe. I guess you'll just have to wait for next month's gaming recap to find out. If you want to see last month's, it'll be the top video in the end card, and below that should be another one YouTube thinks you'll like. But before you watch either of those, don't forget to like the video so the algorithm knows to recommend it to more people, and subscribe if you don't want to miss any of my uploads. Thanks again for sticking around until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.